To date, I would argue that Disney's animated version of Pinocchio is the scariest version of Pinocchio I have ever seen. There are a couple of scenes in that film that are just terrifying. However, I have now watched the 1911 version of Pinocchio, and this could be a contender for being the scariest. It is, with the costumes, it is honestly quite frightening. This was released, of course, in 1911, directed by Giulio Antamoro. Carlo Collodi is credited as the writer on IMDb. If I can find out any more about who wrote, well, the intertitles or anything, I will put that information in the description. We have a cast including Polidor, Augusto Mastripietri, Natalino Guillaume, and Lea Giunchi. I apologise if I've mispronounced any of those names. I'm sure I have. This is a silent film. I watched a version with English intertitles, and it tells the story really well. And what's quite interesting, and this is not surprising, this one is quite close to the book. I recently read the book. It's a really interesting experience, particularly if you grew up with Disney's animated version, to see the similarities and differences. And this one is actually really close to the book. It's quite short at about 50 minutes, but it does a good job of addressing a lot of the key plot points, as Pinocchio is carved out of wood from Geppetto. Geppetto makes a wooden puppet, and he goes off and has adventures and gets into trouble and makes a lot of bad decisions. And I won't go into too much detail, but I do recommend reading the book first before watching this. I think it's the way I did it, it certainly allowed me to get the most out of this. And the reason I think this is interesting but understandable is that many films that have come after Disney's animated version do feel very similar in terms of the bits of the story they focus on. But obviously, this one comes before Disney's animated film, and they do put weight on certain aspects of the story that other versions post-Disney do not. And I think that's really fascinating. So as a story, works well, interesting, fun, engaging, amusing. The costumes are terrifying. Pinocchio looks believable, but definitely really, really disturbing. And there are some costumes later on from other characters that are just so unnerving. I'm quite unnerved by costumes in general, particularly when you can't really see the actor's face. I don't like costumes that mask the face. I find it to be quite scary. And that certainly comes across here. I don't think it's meant to be a terrifying film, but I did find this to be really unsettling, but in a really fun, controlled way, so I quite enjoyed it. Great way to enjoy the story. It definitely does feel different to Disney's animated version and a lot of adaptations that come after that, and that is because I feel like a lot of adaptations will focus on the elements on which Disney focused, because that's a successful story. So why not do something similar? But this one, predating that, does focus on aspects of the novel that I certainly wasn't that familiar with before reading it, and it's very interesting to see. Brilliantly shot, great camera work. The costumes do look good, scary but good. Interesting locations, really great pacing, I think, to tell the story well within the 50-ish minutes. And if you're a Pinocchio fan, definitely check it out. But if you haven't read the book yet, I do recommend reading it first. You don't need to. You absolutely don't need to. But if you are planning on reading it, I'd suggest doing it first. And ultimately, the 1911 Pinocchio is quite an experience.